Today we're going to be covering a topic that I believe is going to be relevant for all company owners, private limited company owners here. Uh, there's been some recent updates in by the MCA, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, which I'll quickly run through in a crisp 5-minute presentation. Hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Right. So recently, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs came out with certain guidelines, which says that usually till now, all public companies or say listed companies had their shares in Demat form. A Demat form which we are all used to, anyone who deals in stocks or probably does stocks for investments. So they all know that the shares are in Demat form. However, all private companies had their shares in a normal physical format. You had physical share certificates issued to you. However, there's been a recent change, whereas the ministry has now said this notification came out on October 27, 2023. It says that every private company, which is not a small company, which I'll discuss what is not a small company, as on 31st March. So you'll have to see your position as on 31st March 2023. If you're a private company and you're not a small company, you have to ensure that all your shares are in dematerialized form by 30th September 2024, which is the last date for dematerialization. So that means you also have to destroy your physical share certificates and have to have a online or say some sort of a dematerialized share wherein you hold your shares with a depository, and accordingly that's how you're going to be maintaining your shares going forward. And any company which is not a small company as on 31st March 23 but subsequently does not satisfy those conditions, so that particular company also has to comply with this within 18 months from the date it ceases to be a small company. So 18 months is what you need to remember. 18 months from March 23 if you are already not a small company, and if you are a small company, then the day you cease to be a small company, from that date you have within 18 months you have to convert your physical shares into dematerialized shares. Now, which companies are mandatorily required to dematerialize? Public companies already in demat form. Non-small private limited companies is the newly added one here. Section 8 companies, subsidiaries of a foreign or an Indian company. So any kind of subsidiary is not a small company. I'll again explain that going forward. So they are also mandatorily required to dematerialize. Producer companies, dormant companies, NBFCs, wholly owned subsidiary of a private company. So all of them are mandatorily required to dematerialize their shares by 30th September 24. Now, what are small companies? So we have seen a lot of exceptions coming in for small companies. So small company is basically a company which is not a public company. So small company can be, say, either a producer company, a dormant company, or, for ease of reference for everyone here, a private limited company. So basically a private limited company whose share capital, paid up share capital, does not exceed 4 CR, which is the current limit that is being specified, and its turnover as per the profit and loss account does not exceed 40 CR. So 4 and 40 is what you need to remember. You're a private limited company, paid up capital does not exceed 4 crores, turnover does not exceed 40 crores. You are a small company. You are not required to dematerialize your shares. However, there are certain exceptions. If suppose my paid up cap, I do not satisfy this turnover and share capital requirements. However, I am a subsidiary of some other company, that is some other company holds me or has shares in me, then this particular exemption is not available to me. I have to mandatorily dematerialize my shares. So the benefit of a small company goes away if you are a holding company of any company or you are a subsidiary company of any company. Well, so some sort of FAQs now pertaining to this amendment that has come in. A subsidiary company will always be considered an all small company. Therefore, the provisions of DMAT are applicable to subsidiaries of foreign companies, Indian private companies, Indian public companies, everybody. Now, what are the immediate actions that you need to take? Well, you need to call a board meeting. You need to do certain actions wherein you have to now appoint a depository who is going to hold your shares in demat form. So all these compliances have to be done and communicated to all your shareholders before 30th September 2024. This is now, it might seem a little difficult, but mostly it's about, hiring a depository who then takes care of all these compliances for you. Now, some pertinent questions arising from this amendment is whether shares of a private company, usually now there's a restriction. It's a private company, restrictions on free transfer of shares because it's a closely held company. Nobody can just go out and sell shares of a private limited company. So certain people had questions post this amendment. Now that the shares are in demat form, would that also change? Would also, private limited company shares be freely traded? So, well, the Companies Act, it has basically formed a private limited company with certain features wherein it restricts the right to transfer shares to anyone in the public. So this amendment is not intended to amend that basic structure of a private company. It is just facilitating eventually that the physical holding of share certificates, because a lot of time people face problems, share certificates get lost, they get torn, they get destroyed. So it's just like converting, getting on the tech savvy mode and going into dematerialization. This, however, does not mean that you will be able to freely sell your shares to anyone in the public. Those restrictions of a private company still apply. Next question coming out of this is whether shareholders of a private limited company transfer shares in physical form before 30th September. Yes, before 30th September, there is no restriction. Post 30th September, you will not be able to transfer your shares in a physical form. You'll have to be dematerialized. Next is whether a company can issue shares in physical form before 30th September. Yes. So before 30th September, you can continuing issuing your shares in a physical form also by issuing physical share certificates. And is it mandatory for shareholder of a private limited company to, compulsorily demat or convert into a demat form? Well, it's not mandatory for the shareholders to convert it. However, if they do not convert it, they will not be able to transfer those shares post 30th September, and they'll not be eligible for a new issue or that comes out from the company. So, well, in a way, you can say it's mandatory. Everybody has to dematerialize by 30th September. Well, this was it. Hope you guys found it useful.